Real YouTubers rank Pokemon. These are the Pokemon that are very strong. Well, like technically they're not very strong right now, but like they're the Pokemon that they're not, because they're not here right now, so like we don't know for sure. But they're gonna be strong. They're gonna be strong. Hey, you guys want to see a magic trick? Pop. Now it's brighter for me. Okay, so there I was thinking about Crown Tundra stuff. Okay, it's exciting. It's coming soon, and I was like, okay. So I made a tier list recently ranking the Pokemon in the Crown Tundra that are returning and grouping them into categories. But then I was thinking, can I push this even further, right? What if people don't want to know just like a general idea of how strong a Pokemon is? What if they want to know what's the strongest Pokemon returning in the Crown Tundra? So I took a look at my tier list and I was like, all right, I can do this. I'm going to figure out the strongest Pokemon returning in the Crown Tundra. Now, it's important to note that the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to assume the format, and I think like we already have some information on the format. It's not 100% confirmed. However, we do have a pretty good sense of what it's going to be. VGC follows a set pattern in general, and it looks like this rule set is going to be following the same pattern. That's relevant because that means that restricted Pokemon such as Xerneas, Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, Mewtwo, and mythical Pokemon, which are never allowed, all those Pokemon are not going to be allowed in the current, or I'm assuming will not be allowed in the upcoming format. So it'll be kind of like non-restricted legendaries such as Heatran, Cresselia. Those are allowed. Tapu Koko, Cresselia, Cortana, Beast, Ultra Beast. Those are allowed. However, not the box legendaries. So obviously, if I was ranking all the Pokemon, there used to be number one, probably then Groudon, Kyogre. It's not as interesting, and also I don't think they're going to be legal. So yeah. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about the remaining Pokemon and what are the top 5 strongest. So it's definitely interesting. And I gave it some thought. It was actually a bit trickier than I thought. Like this could definitely be wrong. I might be misjudging some things, but we'll give it a shot. And these are at least going into the Crown Tundra. These are the Pokemon that I think are going to be the strongest. So at number 5, which is a little low given how good it was last thing. Oh, it's not here. At number 5, or none of them are going to be here. I have to go back to Gen 7. Is Tapu Fini. So Tapu Fini is a really good Pokemon. It won Worlds twice. Although it's the most defensive Tapu by nature, it has been run with Choice Specs, it's been run with Calm Mind. The reason why Tapu Fini, in my opinion, is so good is because its ability, Misty Surge, is really, really strong. That's one of the reasons. It has other things that are good about it, but Misty Surge activates Misty Terrain for 5 turns, right? This does 2 things. It obviously allows you to overwrite the other terrains, primarily Psychic and Electric Terrain, which are more popular, but it also has, like, activates Misty Terrain. Now, Misty Terrain is a really good terrain. On the one hand, it cuts Dragon-type attacks in half, at half damage, which is good. Like, it's definitely useful depending on the team. If you have a grounded Dragon-type Pokemon, it can be helpful. But the real thing is that it's really good variance control. So I know that, like, one of my favorite teams that I built was in 2017, and I had Tapu Fini and Taunt Mimikyu. And it was very good to deal with kind of like luck, right? Because I couldn't get frozen randomly. I couldn't get paralyzed if I didn't want to, like, if I wanted to stop it. And I couldn't be put to sleep. And I also had Taunt, which is just very, very good for variance control. So Misty Terrain is just very nice to, like, make sure that, like, you're not going to get randomly frozen or slept or paralyzed or something like that. So it's a very, very good terrain defensively. Tapu Fini has a lot of good support moves as well. It will typically run Moonblast and often Muddy Water, although that one can be dropped. But if you look at the support moves, it gets Soak, it gets Haze. People ran Haze before. It gets Heal Pulse. It gets Nature's Madness, which is a consistent damage output option. Not super popular, if I would guess, if in Dynamax, because like you're doing half damage to Dynamax. You're doing 25% of the remaining Dynamax Pokemon's HP, which like isn't super good. But yeah, Calm Mind, Taunt. Some people run Ice moves occasionally, not often, but occasionally. It gets Screens. I've seen Screens Tapu Fini in the past. What else? Scald. It was actually used over Muddy Water sometimes. I've used it myself because it doesn't miss, even though you can't burn most things. Yeah. Gravity was used a bit with Primal Groudon. I actually didn't even know it got Iron Defense. Icy Wind is for speed control. That's a huge option. Yeah, I knew that it didn't run Ice Speed, but it ran an Ice move. Yeah, Icy Wind. Yeah. So it gets a lot of good moves, minus whatever else it gets in Crown Tundra and in Generation 8. So Tapu Fini, the reason it's not higher is that, in my opinion, it's not a great Pokemon to Dynamax because it's defensive. Like, if you look at its stats, it's more geared towards being a supportive mon rather than an offensive mon. And you, like, its special attack isn't bad, right? If you run modest max special attack Tapu Fini with Life Orb, Dynamaxing it is definitely going to do some damage, and you'll be really, really bulky, but, like, in my opinion, it really functions better as a support Pokemon rather than, like, an offensive Pokemon. And even when it's an offensive Pokemon, or intended to be that way, like with Specs, it was still naturally bulky, so, like, yeah, like, it was able to, like, get both damage and bulk. And with Dynamax, like, you kind of do the same thing, but, like, it just feels like a waste, in my opinion. So, I don't think it's a great Dynamax target, so I'm putting it at number 5, but I still think it's a very good Pokemon, and so it's on the list. Now, this is a Pokemon that I wouldn't, like, this is one of the ones that I feel least confident about how well it's going to do, because I found that with Tapu Fini, like, it's a Pokemon that, like, if you judge it by its looks, it will often surprise you. Like, a lot of people thought this was the worst Tapu going into the generation, and then by the end, like, people thought it was either the best or the second best to Tapu Koko. So, yeah. So, yeah, we'll have to see, like, how Tapu Fini does. I really don't know. But I would say it's going to do well, but not, I don't think it's going to be metagame dominant, but I think it's going to be very, very strong. So, number 5. Number 4, Stakataka. Stakataka is a really interesting Pokemon. I heard that there's new moves. I haven't looked at them yet, so I'm not going to talk about them. I will do a video on them when I do look. I'm deciding if I want to wait until the games are officially out or if I want to look now, but yeah. Stakataka, the way that you have to understand Stakataka, it has Rock and Steel typing, which, if you might remember me talking about Aggron the other day, is really bad typing. However, it has a saving grace, which is, if you look at its stats, 13 base speed being effectively the slowest thing in the game. There's nothing relevant slower than this, except for maybe Galarian Slowpoke, which might be base 10, but I'm not even sure about that. I think Galarian Slowpoke is 20, actually, so slower than everything, right? Decent special defense, bad special attacks, non-special attacker, but a base 211 defense stat. Meaning, even though it's super, super weak to fighting and ground moves, most of those attacks are physical. So it can actually, like, survive them occasionally, and you can also run Shuka or Triple Berry depending on the metagame. And it has a decent attack stat, like, or a good attack stat as well, a really good attack stat. Like, it can get up to 201 attack stat. And HP isn't phenomenal, but, like, with the defenses, it's, like, pretty solid. So there's a couple ways you can use Stakataka. It normally is going to want to be fighting in Trick Room. It's always going to be wanting to be fighting in Trick Room, truthfully. But it's actually a relatively versatile mon. You could, mainly because of the items you can run. You can run Safety Goggles. You can run. We used to run Z move sometimes. I've run Life Orb on it. You can run Chople Berry, Shuka Berry, Lumberry. A lot of like really good options for it. And yeah, it's a scary Pokemon. Like, these Gyro Balls hurt. If I recall correctly, Gyro Ball can OHKO, like with Life Orb, OHKO's landorus-t through Intimidate. I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong though. But yeah, it's a very strong Pokemon. And it has great moves as well. So obviously we talked about Trick Room. Let's go from the top. Most of the time you're going to want to run Gyro Ball. We ran Wide Guard in the past. I think Wide Guard took a big hit thanks to the introduction of Dynamax, but you can always run it as well. You're not going to run screens on this most of the time, just because, like, you don't really, like, if you had time to set up screens, you'd rather be doing other things. Gyro Ball, Stone Edge, or Rock Slide, one of the two. Trick Room, Protect. That's going to be your move for most of the time. It does get Superpower. It does get Ally Switch, but most of the time you're going to want Protect, Rock Slide, Trick Room, Gyro Ball, in my opinion. It just hits things incredibly, incredibly hard. Again, not a great Dynamax candidate because it is still 4 times weak, and, like, Gyro Ball is 150 base power, so, like, it's not getting that much stronger when you Dynamax it. And, like, yeah. But you could Dynamax it. I think it's definitely an option. Dynamax plus Beast Boost as well is a really scary concept. So, yeah, speaking of that, let's talk about our number 3 Pokemon, Cortana. Cortana's scary. I'm not sure exactly how strong this thing is going to be, but I am definitely worried about it. Cortana's kind of like a glass cannon. It's very fast, extremely powerful, and very frail on the special side. So again, to understand Cortana, we have to look at its stats. Great speed stat, or good speed stat, a phenomenal attack stat. Like, absolutely ridiculous attack stat, 181, and then really bad special defense, 31. So people have run this in a couple different ways. Focus Ash is a popular item on it. Assault Vest is a popular item on it. Both give you, like, the ability to survive 2 special hits, oftentimes, if you EV correctly. The advantage of Assault Vest is you can use it to take, like, a really weak physical attack, and then maybe 2 weak special attacks as well. However, with Dynamax, this thing should be terrifying. I don't like thinking about the idea of Beast Boost plus Dynamax, because Dynamax effectively gives all of your moves a temporary choice band bonus, in addition to any other bonuses you already have, like Life Orb or pre-existing bonuses. So by making Leaf Blade and Smart Strike, which isn't a great move, but with Dynamax you can actually run it, and Sacred Sword, well, not Sacred Sword, but the other two, like, 1.5 times stronger, in addition to their secondary effects, like, you can, in one turn, double your Cortana's bulk, increase Leaf Blade's power by 1.5 times, or maybe more than that, because Leaf Blade actually is only, like, what is its base power? It's not that strong, right? Actually, it's stronger than I thought. Okay, yeah, by roughly 1.5 times. and activate grassy terrain to power up your next attack by 1.3. Like, it's actually terrifying. Like, I feel like if you get Cortana in position, it can just blow through teams. Like, if you don't do anything faster than it and you let it get a KO, it could just be over instantly. In addition, it gets some good moves. You can see here, it used to get knockoff through via tutor moves. But it gets Aerial Ace, which, like, people didn't run in the past, but now you can run it because of Dynamax. It gets Sacred Sword, which everyone ran. Because it hits like it hits the Cortana, but now you can use that to get an attack boost. You can now use Smart Strike, which people didn't normally run because it was like a relatively weak move. Some people ran it, but you didn't really need the coverage and it's a weak move. But now with Dynamax, how strong is this? 130? Wait, oh, Z move power. Okay, well I can't. Hang on. All right, I'll go look up what the power is. I don't really want to, but it's probably like 120. But let's just check. Yeah, it's only 120, but still, you're almost doubling your power just by Dynamaxing of Smart Strike. So you get an actual attack by doing that. So I think that like if you played a game where, wait, what? If you played a game where you like where you conserved your Cortana intelligently and like stalled out their Dynamax and then brought Cortana in and Dynamaxed it, I think you could win like relatively easily. Not to mention, Dynamax makes you immune to Fake Out, which is like Incineroar was not I wouldn't say it was a Cortana counter, but it was definitely a tool you could use because like. It gave you Intimidate, it gave you Fake Out to stall out if they ran Tailwind, or to break Focus Ashes, or just to, like, if they had Assault Vest and couldn't protect. And it also had Fire Move, so, like, you could take a Sacred Sword after Intimidate, maybe even without Intimidate. And then you could Flare Blitz and Oko them back. So, yeah, like, I think, like, Incineroar was a good Pokemon to deal with it, but now, like, if they expect Incineroar to switch in, then, or, like, even if they don't, and they just, like, Max Knuckle and you know, or they Max Knuckle your Incineroar, like, I don't know. I think Cortana is going to be a real problem, and, on the one hand, like on the other hand, you can use Dynamax to increase Pokemon survivability. So like that's why Cortana isn't higher at number 2 or number 1 because like although I think it's likely it runs away with the format, I'm not so positive that like I think there should be counterplay to it as well. So like I'm kind of just waiting and seeing, but I do think it's really strong. Yeah. So yeah, Cortana is really scary. Number 2, Tapu Koko. This thing I've talked about before, but I think this is going to be like. I expect this to be very, very, very powerful. It's like Tapu Fini, except that it's not. It's Electric type and Fairy type. Electric is actually a really nice typing because there's not that many resistances to it. Ground, Grass, Electric, Dragon. Okay, there's actually a fair few resistances to it, but it's just a very nice type. It gets access to Volt Switch. So like the way that Tapu Koko used to be run was like Volt Switch, other Electric move, normally Thunderbolt, sometimes Thunder. Dazzling Gleam and Protect with Life Orb or Z move, or some people run Assault Vest Tapu Koko for support with like Nature's Madness, Skydrop, Electro Web, that stuff, which actually should get better because Electro Web was buffed thanks to the speed changes. Yeah, so Tapu Koko gets Taunt as well. It gets some good moves, but most of the time you're going to want Volt Switch, other Electric move, Dazzling Gleam, Protect. I think that's just like a solid slot. This thing should be really scary because Tapu Koko's strength are that it's really fast, and that's most of its strength. And it gets Volt Switch, which means like you can very much use it to chip opposing Pokemon down, like Volt Switch, like chip things down gradually, and then when it's time, you can bring it back in and start sweeping with it in the late game. However, like its weaknesses are that it's not especially strong. Like 95 base special attack means you only hit 147. It's weaker than Jolteon, in other words, like by I think 10 or 20 points. So it's like a lot weaker than Jolteon. So it doesn't hit like that hard. Jolteon is relatively strong, so I'm not saying Tapu Koko was weak by any means, but like if you weren't running Z move, then like you couldn't do like a lot of burst damage, and if you were running Z move, you had to call it correctly when they were not gonna protect and when you had to use it. So I like Tapu Koko. I won nationals with Tapu Koko last year, or like last year we had tournaments. So I like it, but it wasn't a perfect Pokemon. It was just like incredibly strong. Now keep in mind, Tapu Koko was one of the 2 Tapu that won Worlds twice. Despite the fact that it was only legal for 3 years, and despite the fact like that it has a low base special attack set, it was still good enough. Now consider that you can do what you were doing before with Tapu Koko and use it kind of as this, I wouldn't say bulky offense, but like difficult to hit, tough to nail down Pokemon that just like is easy. It's easy to switch in and out because of Volt Switching gives you positioning and lets you like do like chip damage over time. You could still do all that, but now you have the option of Dynamax, which lets you number 1, let's say the opponent leaves Tapu Lele. You can Dynamax and hit them with Max Lightning or Max Fairy, or hit the partner with one of those moves. And now, all of a sudden, you know, like, you got your terrain back, right? You don't have to switch out, so you're not forced to switch to get your terrain back. And number 2, if they don't have a Tapu in the field, or like if your terrain is up and it's not in threat of being overwritten, you can just use Max Lightning anyway, and it'll be very powerful. Like, it's a very, very strong move. So Yeah, this increases Tapu Koko's offenses by a lot. Like, it's relevant because it's deceptive because although like all Pokemon get the same relative boost from Dynamax, Tapu Koko gets a lot more because it's able to reset its Electric Train, which is like more valuable, and it's setting Electric Train up anyway. So like, if it Dynamaxes, it'll probably be an Electric Train unless the opponent has Dynamax to counter it. Additionally, it gets access to Rising Voltage, which is a 140 base power move when Dynamax, or it probably gets access to Rising Voltage. I assume it does, because it would be really weird if it didn't. But it's a very powerful move, and it works in and out of Dynamax, unlike Thunder, which is like a stronger Dynamax, but like doesn't really work outside of it. So, yeah. Additionally, with Dynamax, maybe you can run a physical Tapu Koko. We'll have to see if they give it Play Rough, because that will determine if physical Tapu Koko is like actually viable. But yeah, the defenses and HP are like not bad, but they're kind of middling, and with Dynamax they become pretty good. And yeah, like I don't know, I think Tapu Koko should be very, very strong. I mean, to be fair, they're adding Landorus back, so like Landorus is very strong against Tapu Koko. But I mean, if you switch into a Max Fairy, Life Orb Max Fairy at the wrong time, I think Landorus isn't going to enjoy that if it's not a Saltfest. So yeah, so Tapu Koko I think will be extremely good this format. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's my guess. And then last but not least, this one should be no surprise to anybody. Last Pokemon is Landorus Therian form. This Pokemon is very, very, very strong. It wasn't as dominant in 2018 as I would have expected, but I think that out of all the returning Pokemon, this benefits the most from Dynamax. Intimidate, incredible stats. That's a common theme with the Pokemon that are returning that are really good. 145 base attack with good defenses, decent speed, and a really good ability. And you can actually run special because it's 105 isn't bad. It's stronger than Tapu Koko. Yeah. So with Landorus, you're going to want to run some kind of ground move. It depends if it gets high horsepower, but Earthquake is also good. And you're normally going to want to run U-turn, though that's not like essential. But Landorus benefits so much from Dynamax. In the past, like if we look at Landorus' move pool here, you can see it doesn't get a good physical flying type attack. Like it doesn't get acrobatics or Brave Bird or anything. Its best and only flying move is Fly on the physical side. So yeah, so you would be forced to run Fly, which with Z moves is not super valuable, right? Like with a Z move, you only get one use at using your move, and if the opponent protects or if they switch or something, you could totally waste your move, and then you're stuck with a useless move for the rest of the game. Now, with Dynamax, you get 3 turns of that, and it will boost your speed every turn. So, Earthquake, Fly, Rock Slide, U-turn, Superpower are all great moves. Maybe you actually run like a Saltfest Lander with Fly over U-turn, or Fly over Rock Slide maybe. Oh, the Rock Slide's so good. Or Fly over Superpower. Depends on the metagame, but like this thing should be very, very, very difficult to KO. It was already very bulky with a Assault Vest, and even without Assault Vest, now that you can Dynamax it, it's like terrifying. I expect the Assault Vest variant to be pretty powerful personally. Earthquake, Fly, Superpower, Rock Slide, U-turn. Pick 4 of those 5, and you got yourself a really strong Pokemon. I would be surprised if this is not one of, if not the most popular Pokemon in the format personally, just because like, assuming you can Dynamax, because you're taking a really good base attack stat and adding like 216 attack stat, or what is it? Is this really right? No, 197 attack stat, and then giving it a 1.5 times power boost and a double bulk boost and the ability to raise its special defense, speed, and attack. It should be very difficult to beat, I think. The one good news is that Landorus-t kind of counters Landorus-t, or at least that's what we usually think, which is like you can switch Landorus-t into Landorus-t and give it the Intimidate, but with U-turn it's hard to do, but also they can Max Knuckle and nullify that. So I expect a lot of the format to revolve around this Pokemon. I expect this thing to single-handedly enable or disable other Pokemon. So yeah, this is, in my opinion, going to be the strongest thing coming back. Though if Tapu Koko was number 1 and this were number 2, I wouldn't be surprised, but I definitely think that these two will be the strongest. So I think that's it. Those are my top 5. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let me know if this sounds reasonable, or if you think I'm off the mark on any of these Pokemon, or if there's anything that's not a restricted legendary that you think is stronger than these. So yeah, with all that being said, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.